I'm hoping my environment is a lot quieter now.
Yes, you're good to go. You're live.
All right, I guess it's a very good evening and welcome to everyone who is joining us. We seem to have a bit of an echo. I'm wondering where that's coming from. I'm sure it's not coming from my side.
Is our side good? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Looks like the echo is taken care of now. So a very good evening to you and thank you for joining us for this month's In Conversation with Honorable Sarah Kiyingi Chama. My name is Ben Mwine and it's an absolute delight to be having some time to spend with one of the veteran politicians in Uganda, someone who's been around for quite a while. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to make her look old. I know how sensitive it is with ladies and the age. So you forgive me and don't get offended. Just as a way of introduction to get us started, of course, to bring you up to speed with who we're talking to. For a lot of our younger audience, a lot of our younger people, you might not be very familiar with who Honorable Sarah Kiyingi is. Let me educate you for just a moment before we bring her into the conversation and have a chat with her. Honorable Kiyingi has been around for quite a while. At the very beginning of multi-party politics in Uganda in 1996, she was a member of parliament and she served 2 terms representing Rakai district at the time, and also spent a bit of time in the Ugandan cabinet for about 4 to 6 years between 1998 and 2004 as a Minister of State for Internal Affairs. At some point, however, she decided that politics wasn't working for her, and we're going to be trying to figure out what that was all about. Also, importantly, I should point out for the purpose of our conversation this evening that Honorable Kiyingi is a God-fearing person, and we are having a discussion on why it's important for Christians in particular to be engaged in politics and in governance for their country and why that's important. There's a Bible verse that says that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. How does that relate to Uganda as a country right now, especially in the perspective of those of us who profess and claim, and I use the word claim here, to be Christians, because it's one thing to claim to be something, but how you live ends up being an entirely different story. So we'll start from there, I guess. Honorable Sarah Kiyingi, a very good evening to you, and thanks a lot for making time this Friday evening. How are you doing today?
Good evening, Ben. I'm very fine, thank you.
So you've been a farmer for quite a bit. Tell us a little bit about what's been keeping you busy since you've been a little bit away from the public limelight. What has been keeping you busy from the time you had stepped away from politics?
Yeah, from politics, I did some counseling. I started counseling because I felt like when I was in parliament, there are lots of people who would come to me and, ask me things and so on. And they come back and say, you've been helpful. So I thought, well, let me go and take a counseling course so that I'm sure I'm doing it well. And thereafter, I also did a course in the Bible, I went to Bible college because I felt also that being a Christian, I know that the Bible is our guide, and I felt like I really need to know what does the Bible say about certain things. And so Right now, I'm a farmer, and I'm also, I am involved in teaching people the word of God. Yeah.
That's very incredible. And when you talk about teaching the word of God, I know that you have mentioned that one of the teachings that you had been doing was specifically for leaders. Your time in Parliament, if I can start from there to begin with, the Sixth Parliament is noted as having been probably one of the most effective and efficient in this country's history in terms of the principles by which you stood, in terms of the way you conducted yourselves. What is it that you think that made that particular lot stand out from some of the things that we have seen since that time? Because clearly you can tell that there seems to be a bit of a difference in the way our politics is run in Uganda as a country at the moment.
I think for the Sixth Parliament, the majority of people were really devoted to doing the work and representing the people that had elected them. And yeah, as far as I recall, there was no, well, I really can't, I can only say that there was the corruption that we see now. The way everything is on sale in that parliament was not the case. We censored ministers. First of all, we were not even paid the huge sums of money that people are being paid now. We were paid per day that we attended parliament. And, you know, but we were all, I want to say that I want to believe that we were all dedicated to doing the work for which we had been elected. And what we had told people that we were going to do is what we were focusing on. Yeah.
And almost immediately after this ended, you decided that you wanted to take a break from the politics. Was it you taking a break? Were you pushed out of politics? Did you get frustrated? What was the reason for you not running again? Because you served 2 terms, and it's very unusual for a Ugandan politician to be able to say, okay, I have done 2 terms, I'm going home, bye-bye, thank you. Usually we will vote them out. That's when they will know they're not wanted anymore. But you didn't run for a 3rd term, you did 2 terms and said, that's it. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, as you recall, we were 96 to 2006. That's what was the term limit, even for the president. And for me personally, I set that as my you know, target, that I would be there for 2 terms. I was prepared to leave. And yeah, the fact that the situation became so murky, there was corruption, there was bribery at the end of changing of term limits, just confirmed to me that, you know, it's just as well that I leave. I didn't want to continue. But, you know, when you are there, you think, well, maybe, you know, and people keep telling you, the people want you, you should come back, and so on and so forth. But for me, I had made up my mind. I said goodbye to the people. I told them I was leaving. And even in the midst of the Sanja mess, I just felt like, yeah, it was time for me to leave.
Right. So again, just to clarify, your leaving was not necessarily only because of what was going on at the time in terms of how murky things had gotten, as you say, but really because you had decided this is how much time you were going to serve, and you felt that that was it, and you were not going to change your mind regardless of what people thought. Is that right?
I saw it as a good thing that I served for only 2 terms. But as I've said, of course, there were people who were telling me you should stand again and so on and so forth. But when I saw that you know, we had been deceived that, you know, the Constitution was going to be upheld, and we gave it our all, and then all the corruption that took place, I just felt like I'm not sure I know what is going on here. Let me just leave this. And of course, in my constituency, people were saying, you know, you could change your mind and support the Chisanja. I didn't support that Chisanja thing. So, and people were saying, change your mind. And I said, how can I change my mind? This is what I believe. I cannot change from what I believe. So all things worked out together for good, I think. And I just, yeah, and I said, let me take a break and yeah.
The way people treat politics at the moment in this country makes it seem like if you have an opportunity like that and you let it go, there is something wrong with you. And you alluded to the fact that at the time you are being paid per sitting, as opposed to the sort of amounts of money that we see our politicians being able to get in our day now. If you don't mind just, you know, sharing some insights in terms of what was that like for you, the motivation for the crop of leaders that you had alongside you, your peers at the time. Are you trying to tell us, in all honesty, that there was no financial motivation involved? Because I mean, look, at the end of the day, you have bills to pay, you've got a livelihood to keep. Was money never a factor at all in your time as a politician?
Well, personally, and I've heard many people that, you know, people like Miriam Matembe, they've said that they went there to serve. Personally, I went there to serve. And yes, we were paid little, but for me, that was not, money was not what took me there. Maybe other people went there because there was money, but there was also NRC. Those people were not really paid huge amounts of money like we see now. And when we went to campaign, we campaigned using the little resources we had. But I think there were people who looked at it as a way of earning income or getting money, huge sums of money and so on. Some people borrowed money. And I think that's what led to the corruption and how it has increased today, because when they borrowed, they had debts, and every time they would be, you know, in trouble, in financial trouble. And so when the seventh parliament came, people were bribed. They were given 5 million at that time. It was, you know, I think it was a lot of money to them. They were given the 5 million, and I think that was the beginning of Parliament becoming a trade house.
I'm sure you have a lot of contemporaries who are still serving as politicians to date, and many of whom are your friends and you probably get to talk to. What sort of discussions do you have with them based on where we have come from and where we are? What do they tell you? Do they feel that things have changed as you do, or are they saying that, look, we've moved on, we're moving with the times, things are different, let's go with the flow? What sort of discussions do you have with your contemporaries and peers that you've been with from that time? What sort of things do they tell you? Would like to know.
I don't think I meet many, and I think people are guarded in their discussions, but there's some people that I've met and they've said, well, this is what everybody is doing. And so what difference does it make if I accept the money? I will be well off. If I don't accept the money, other people will accept it, and they will be, you know, the decision for which they are being bribed will be taken anyway. I may as well also gain this money, and also because the person or the people that are bribing them are also promising all sorts of things, so they are attracted to the promised, you know, positions and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think that is.
Do you think it would be understandable for that sort of reasoning? I mean, again, like you say, the person is saying, look, it doesn't matter what I do, it's not going to change anything. And this happens probably be at the moment my only way of being able to make a living. How does someone reconcile that with being able to, stand for what is right? For example, it doesn't matter what I do. This has been decided it's going to change anyway. I might as well get something from it.
Yeah, well, for people who are not believers, I think for people who do not take their relationship with their God as important, I think that it is obvious that's the way they will think, because they are looking at what they're gaining right now, and their confidence is in material things. But for what I don't understand are people who say they are Christians or they are believers or they believe in God, and they know that God wants them to do things right, and they just go by the flow. You hear many people who are saying, oh, collective responsibility and all that. I think it's just an excuse, because if it's collective, we've been there. Collective responsibility doesn't mean you vote with the people. You vote for the wrong decision. You can say, personally, I don't agree with that because that's not what I should vote for. But if the decision is taken collectively, if the majority of people vote for it, then you say, well, I didn't like it, but that's the decision that has been taken. And I think there are many people who hide behind that collective responsibility, but they've really just decided that they can be like everybody else.
Right. Were you at any point, look, we as Christians, we all get tempted. Only Jesus was without sin, as we know from Hebrews 4. It says that, all of us at some point would have been tempted. He endured temptation even just as we do. Did you at any point in your time get tempted to maybe compromise on some of the decisions that you are taking because of either peer pressure, orders from above, or anything like that? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, for instance, when I was in the ministry, there are people who used to come and, expect me to do favors or they would come with all sorts of gifts and expecting me to, to give them favors. And I said, well, there's somebody who came and said was giving me a trip, and this person who was campaigning had submitted a request for they wanted, I think that time it
Most people would have been able to see that as a good opportunity. I mean, it's not like they were explicitly offering a bribe. They were just offering a trip. You had just been married. It would have been very easy, wouldn't it, to still take this trip? What was it at the back of your mind that made you think this cannot be right? What was informing that thinking for you?
you don't even have to go by the law to look for a loophole or whatever, you just know this is not right. And anyway, I didn't refuse the offer. I said, we can discuss that offer after this whole project is out of the way, so that I know if you continue saying, I still give you the offer, nevertheless, whether I've won or not, then I would have known that it was a genuine offer.
Right. I mean, I would like to know how this story ended. Did they eventually come back with the offer? Whether they got...
No, they didn't. They didn't. But the bidding process was also, stopped for all sorts of reasons. And yeah.
Let's talk about that, because now it speaks directly into faith and the challenge that comes with that. The understanding normally for people is that if you do the right thing, God is going to reward you. The harsh reality, though, seems to be that when you do the right thing, in many times you might suffer certain consequences, at least as far as the world is concerned. And the repercussions of that sometimes will be in terms of things that you might lose, that you might have wanted. How did you manage to process that, knowing that, for example, you have been a minister and because of your personal values and your faith system, that has ended, and yet you're not willing to compromise on that? Surely there must have been at some point some sort of pain of loss in your heart about this direction?
I think one can get tempted to think that you have lost, but there is much more to lose when you act corruptly, because you have a conscience. Maybe some people don't mind about their conscience, but also because I went there trusting God, and I just didn't see why I should change from what, when before I went to politics, I remember I said to myself, I actually knelt down and said, God, I'm going into politics, but I would rather come out having done all the evil things that I hear politicians do. That was my prayer. And I can assure you, Ben, God did miracles for me in the campaigns, in the meetings.
Right, and you obviously managed to do that. Let's talk a bit about the testimony then, by being able to stand for what you believe was right. In some cases, you will have people who will come up to you and say, you know what, we're very proud of you, you're doing the right thing. Did you have any of that, or people who came to applaud your decision and your actions? And what was that like for you? How did that feel?
You mean when we were in Parliament? When
Correct.
we were in Parliament or there? Yeah, there are those who came to me, and I think they were people who came to me more asking why I was not, going along with all these other offers. But there are those also who came to me and said, you are doing a good thing. But I think that was more in the public. I think the public applauded our decision to vote against it. We may have been few. And there are those who voted for that removal of term limits. But now they say, you people were wise. And for me, even up to now, when I go to my constituency, people will say that is the person who rejected the stand, because they know it was wrong. There are even those who voted for it, but there are reasons why, my child is in school, I still need the money, blah, blah, blah. But there's never enough money. There's never enough money. And I know when they watch what is going on today, some of it, even to their personal disadvantage, I'm sure they know it was wrong. Yeah.
Is that one of the things that has then now prompted you to sort of become a bit more actively engaged in the discussions around the future of our country?
Yeah, of course, when I came out, I was like, I think I better leave this space. And I think, like many believers, I said this politics has become so corrupt and all this kind of thing. But one day somebody, I was talking with a person, and this person said that if all of you good people get out of politics, how do you think this country is going to be changed for good? And really that set me thinking. And I also remembered that statement that all it takes for evil to flourish is for good people to do nothing. And I felt like, oh no, I think I'm going to go back there. I'm going to make a contribution, and whatever, the outcome, I'm not going to be seen or to sit here and behave like nothing is going on, or that I have nothing to contribute. So then I sought a party that carries the values that I believe in, and that was Alliance for National Transformation. So I joined Alliance for National Transformation. And I want to also, right now, my desire is to convince those who believe in integrity, in good governance, in changing this nation to the track that it was supposed to go, that people who believe in God, because our motto says for God and our country, for God and my country. Everybody who believes in that motto, everybody who believes in God, and everybody who believes that God has a purpose and plan for this nation should not think that this nation is going to get to its purpose when we have ungodly people in leadership. First of all, I really believe that there's always a statement, politics is a dirty game. That is a statement from hell. Politics, it is dirty people who go into politics and make it so dirty. Politics is like water. If you have a glass of water, it will be clear until you put mud in it. So all these people, if you look at them, they are like, soil, bad soil or mud that you've put there. If you put purple color in water, it will be purple. Whatever you put in water, that's what it will become. So that's what politics is. It looks bad because we have left bad people, or people who have no moral integrity, people who don't care what they do, who think, this is politics and you can do anything in politics. And so we've left them to be there. And then especially for Christians, I don't know so much about Islam, but I will speak on behalf of, I will speak about Christianity. I mean, for Christians to think that ungodly people can do godly things is ridiculous. They can't. The Bible says the Spirit of God is not in them. And for those of us who stand up, we stand up because God is within us. The Spirit of God is within us. And it is God. For me, as an individual, I cannot say that I can be a good politician just like that. But it's because I know when I wake up, God is with me. When I go to that office, God is with me. When it is because God is within us. It is the Spirit of God that is within us. In fact, I'll give you, for instance, one time when we were dealing with that Sanja thing, you would go and sit down with a person and you say, okay, you try to explain to them why they shouldn't support the Sanja. And they would say, yes, I see what you're saying, but you know, for me, I'm scared they will put people to oppose me, they will do this, they will do the other. You know, they lived under fear. They had that fear. But for me, I didn't have that fear because I had God within me. And that makes the difference. And you tell them, I said, but if everybody who believed that this just Sanja is a bad thing voted against it, your fears wouldn't even come to pass. But you see, they didn't have, and over a period of time, I really got so upset. And I said, God, how can it be that people don't believe this is a good decision, but they are voting for it? Of course, there was a lot of manipulation. The processes were changed because we were supposed to vote secretly. That was removed and all that kind of thing. So people were found having taken the bribe. Some of them thought, okay, I'll take the money. How will they know? And then they were told, you are going to vote openly, so that they see if anybody who took the money voted against it. So they were really tricked into that whole thing. But when I said, then I said, God, how can it be that people believe one thing and they are voting against, they are voting a different thing? And God spoke to me. He said, it's because for you have an anchor. They don't. They just move, like in those days, there was this weed. What was it? The weed hyacinth. They were moving where the wind blows, that's where they went. But, God spoke to me, it's because for you have an anchor. And that humbled me really. And to be able to look at people, to say, thank you, Lord, because I know you, I can stand against these pressures. But when they don't, they can't stand against those pressures. And that's why, for me, I want to encourage believers, because I believe there are people out there, believers, that feel God has called them to this political space. But they can't be in it because the church generally, the fellowship of believers in general, thinks politics is not for believers. When I had just gone in politics, you would hear people say, Oyonaya against it. Even that one is gone. People associate politics as, if you go into politics, you've deserted, you've left the fellowship of believers. That's not true. God sustains us wherever he takes us. He's more than able, he's more than willing. He has called people. I know people that have been appointed in certain positions and they've refused because they fear they are going to be defiled or whatever. Defiled, I think, is what they fear. But you can stand in that office, you can be in that office trusting in God and believing that God will sustain you there.
Right.
I really do.
There's a parable in the book of Matthew chapter 13 that talks about the parable of the sower, and Jesus is talking about a farmer who went out to sow his seed, and some fell along the path and birds came and ate it up, and some fell on rocky places where did not have much soil, and then some fell amongst the thorns, and then some fell on good soil. In reference to this thing that you talked about as an anchor, would it be fair if I say that it's not advisable for anyone to try and venture into governance or politics if they are not sure of their anchor? Because from what I'm hearing you say, the sort of turf that you're playing on is such that if you're not anchored, you're most likely going to be compromised in a very short time, simply because of the sort of environment that you're working in.
I think, yeah, anchored, how deep is the anchor? I don't think I knew more than, you know, many people, especially many people who are refusing to go there. I think the point is one needs to know what is my, how, you know, the fact that God can sustain you wherever he has put you. I think people come to me and ask, do you think I should go into politics? And I tell them, first of all, go and lock yourself in your room and ask God, do you want me to go into politics? Should I go? Find out if God wants you to be there, because once you know that, first of all, it will give you the confidence. It will help you to trust him to sustain you there. Because if you are not sure that he wants you to be there, every time you meet an obstacle, you might think that it's not, maybe it's not God, maybe it's God, and so on. But once you are sure that God wants you to be there, he will definitely sustain you there. Yeah, just ask God, because the other reason why we need to find out if God wants us to be there is also because when you go to campaign, you will have people who will say, oh, the people are looking forward to you, people want you, blah, blah, blah. When in fact, all they want is to jump on the bandwagon and, you know, maybe receive money from you and, you know. So you have to be sure that it is you and God wants you to be there. He will sustain you. Even if people come and say they support you and tomorrow they say, oh, you're tough now, that one is no good, and they leave you, you know that God is with you. But if you are not sure, then that can be a very, very difficult situation. But God is with us. Yeah.
So God might be with us, Honorable Kiyingi, but you still have a situation where, as you mentioned, the majority of the people might not think the way we do. And you probably see this in the campaigns, and it's been talked about. I have a friend who ran in the recently concluded elections, and from what we surmised, from what we were able to gather, he essentially lost an election, not because people didn't like him. And many people in his constituency were very honest with him and said, look, we like you a lot, but that guy has taken care of what they call logistics. And because of that, they were able to sway enough people to make sure that he doesn't win, simply because of the sort of electorate he's dealing with. So as a Christian, I want to go and run in my small constituency in Kashari, where my dad had a very huge impact, or Kajara, where my grandfathers grew up. But knowing very well that my principles might not be able to apply, especially in the sort of campaign regime that we work with these days, what advice do you give to somebody? Because you're already completely playing against the tide. Do you sit back and simply believe in God for a miracle? What practical things does someone do to ensure that they're able to fight against this obviously bigger tide that will not be kind to anybody who does not kowtow with the situation as it is? At the moment, it's I give you money, you vote for me. People have come to accept that. It's who we are as a country. In the last election, we saw many candidates that the ANT was putting ahead being told the same thing. We think you're great, you're incredible, you're amazing. Right? What is it that you're giving us? How do you deal with that sort of thinking amongst our people?
I think, yeah, what you are saying is indeed a very big challenge. When we went to campaign, people were saying, you people, you are good, but you see, everybody is that way, and so on and so forth. Those are real challenges. And that's why as the Alliance for National Transformation, we are saying believers or people who believe in integrity, they may be Christians, whatever they are, people who believe in integrity and good governance should join Alliance for National Transformation. The only reason we did not Alliance for National Transformation, as you've said, everywhere we went, people were saying, indeed, you should be the people to lead. But because the same people were not supporting us, if those very people had supported us, maybe at some point we would have had a critical mass. But if everybody says, those people don't, we can't support them because they are not many, that makes it difficult even for Alliance. And moreover, I think, first of all, just as I said, go to God. God will give you wisdom on how to, even if you are going to campaign. The other thing I tell believers, don't go there as a matter of life and death. Don't go there as a matter of life and death. I must get into that parliament. I must get there. Some people go there because they want money. Yes, there is money, but is that all there is in this world? If you go looking for money and people are asking you for money, what do you think? You are going to, for instance, I mean, we went round, we went with General Mugisha Muntu, we lost, but we are still here and we are building our party. And so people may not necessarily go into campaigns and so on, but they can join a party where they can contribute ideas, they can contribute resources, they can volunteer to participate with us on various aspects, so that when we go to the campaign, for instance, if you come from Kashari and you join now, and you go and we set up structures, who knows, these people with their wickedness, they will go away. One day they are going to go, it will go, but we shall be here. Even if I personally am not here, the party will be there if we establish it on the foundation of God's word, on the foundation of godly principles, on the foundation of people who are committed, not because they want money, not because they want the big jobs and so on and so forth, but they want to see a nation that is established on on proper principles that are in line with the motto that we have, for God and my country. People who are going to look at this nation and say, this is what we deserve. Many of these nations, a country like US, it was established by people who are godly. Even up to now, even when the leaders may not be godly at this point, but they established a foundation upon which the nation has been able to stand. I think we just have to know. For me, I went in because I went to ANT, not because I wanted to stand, but because I want to make a contribution. And if everybody puts their piece, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Everybody puts their piece and God connects the dots. That's the way I see it, yeah.
It seems a little bit obvious from what you say and how you've been talking on your decisions that clearly your thinking is obviously in the right direction. And I must ask this question. You're still just 62 years at the moment. You still have a lot of life left in you, obviously. I think all the time you've been spending on the farm has given you quite a bit of energy. So why aren't we talking about you running in 2026? What's stopping you from doing that? Because you need to be leading from the front.
No, that's not something I've thought about, really. I think there are people that can still stand. I'm not saying I wouldn't stand. If God told me to stand, I would stand, because I think, guided by God, nothing is impossible. But for now, I went to ANT so that I can participate with like-minded people to build a party that is based on godly principles, so that we can attract more people, and for me to really engage or encourage believers to go to join politics, even if they are not. It doesn't matter whether they are standing. If they feel God has called them to stand for election, let them stand. If they are not standing, if you think this is a party that is carrying the principles, that is standing on the principles you believe in, support that party. Support that party. Make a contribution. Contribute to ideas, go on their spaces and make contributions. You don't have to be there, wondering what should be done. I live in a neighborhood which has a very good motto: don't lament, get involved. That's what we need to have. Ugandans, believers, get involved in politics, because it is you who have the Spirit of God in you that can enable you to even think, and the knowledge that comes from God. Believers join politics at whatever level, in whichever form.
I must say that one of the things that has stood out for me over the last few years, especially listening to what you're saying now and hearing what General Muto has been saying, I've had the privilege of sitting with him a number of times when I was still doing VPN at KFM and in a couple of other fora. And I've always been humbled, I should say is the word, by the way you all keep saying that go and join. And it doesn't have to be the ANT, go and join. Like wherever it is that you're going, but you go if you know that you have something that is worthy of God calling you, go to that place. And I've got to say, I think this is my personal opinion, that I think that's very commendable, that it's not about saying come to ANT because we are the best solution. You're simply saying wherever you are, where you think you can be able to go and serve God and your country, go and do that. And I've got to say to you that I find that to be absolutely remarkable and worthy of honor.
Thank you.
That said, you also are saying, I keep hearing you saying something about God told me, God told me, God told me. Now, I need to interrogate that a little bit, because we have had a lot of people and see a lot of people who will say exactly the same thing, and they either turn out to be deluded in some cases. Some of them have deceived themselves into thinking that God told them. How does someone truly know, as you do or as you did, that indeed God has told me that this is what I'm supposed to do? Because there's a Luganda word that I have come to love, especially in regard to this particular issue, because being involved in the church, you hear it quite a bit. I think the word is kwetu mikiriza. I hope I pronounce that correctly. Where you basically go and decide to do things out of your own selfish ambition and then try and blame it on God or claim that it is God who has sent you. How does someone be sure and confident that it is indeed God who has sent them or told them to go and do something, especially like this, in joining politics and governance, as opposed to just the sheer potential of how much money they might be able to make, and therefore they put a veil on their faces and try and claim God has told me, God has told me. How does someone balance that?
Yeah, that's difficult, but when God speaks to you, he has spoken to you. That's the good thing. It would be difficult for me to give A, B, C, D, then God has spoken to you. But when God speaks to me, I know he has spoken to me. But indeed, what you've said, it's a challenge, because there are lots of people who say God has spoken to them, but really it's their flesh that has spoken to them. And I think one of the ways you have to to think about it is the peace that you get out of it, but also ask yourself, why is it that I'm interested in going? Am I interested? Because there are people who have said, I don't have a job. When I go there, I will get this money. I will pay fees for my children now. I don't think that is God who has spoken to you. If that's what you are focusing on, the money you are going to get if you get to that parliament, I don't think that's God. It would be, you would get the money when you get there, but to use that, when you search your heart, or, the Bible says, search my heart and know if there is any wicked way in me.
Psalm 139.
Yeah, but I really, Ben, I don't know. For me, when God has spoken to me, he has spoken to me and I've understood it. But there are also things that I felt like God has spoken to me. And then when I move, I realize, I think I made a mistake. And God is gracious. If you go and you think, these things are not working out, you say, you leave. God is gracious. I mean, he's not going to pounce on you because you made a mistake. But I think what we need to commit ourselves is to go and seek his wisdom as we go along. Because you may believe he has guided you there, and you get there, you don't have any way of getting things done, and then you look and say, I think, and you don't have people to come along with you, and then you think, well, I think I made a mistake, and then you come out.
How important do you think it is for people to be able to acknowledge when they have made mistakes? You get the sense that one of the challenges we have in this country is that people don't want to take responsibility for their mistakes, that you see a lot of things that go wrong, and it seems to be a lot of work for people to say, you know what, that one I got wrong, that was a mistake. And I'll give you a very simple example that you just referred to in regards to what you were fighting against, the fighting of term limits. In regards to accountability and why that is important for posterity for many generations, there are people who maybe should have been thinking, okay, maybe we didn't make the best decision at that point. Why do you think it's difficult for people to be able to say, okay, that one we got wrong, and I'm sorry that we were part of that, especially people who are supposed to be God-fearing and Christians?
I think it's pride. I think it's pride. Nobody wants to be seen to have been, the cause or contributed to the misery we are in as a nation right now. But yeah, God is gracious. I think we should. It is liberating when you say, look, I made a mistake. I think, like a man like Nyerere will know that he led people to a certain point in a given direction, and he confessed. He said, I think this way we cannot continue in this way, and because I've led you this way, I cannot be the one to lead you in another direction. Let it be someone else. I think it takes humility, really. It takes humility. And the opposite of humility is pride. If people won't say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, it's just that they are proud. Yeah.
And that becomes a problem. Our discussion hinges on Christians getting involved in politics and governance. There might be people who are, with us on this Twitter space, but also those who will watch this video online afterwards, that might not necessarily subscribe to the faith that you and I do, and who think that you as Christians are just a waste of time based on what they have experienced, based on what they have seen, based on people who claim to be Christians and seem to live rather hypocritical lives. And I think you and I will both admit that we do have a number of those, and that maybe even you and I at some point have done things that would supposedly seem to contradict the faith that we profess. What do we say to people like this to say, look, this is still going to be the way things should be done, regardless of how we have maybe not lived up to that standard, for example?
You mean people of other faiths?
Correct.
Yeah. That's why I said from the beginning that people who believe in integrity and good governance, no matter what their faith is, there are people who are out there and thinking that if they go into politics, and as I said, I don't know much about Islam to say that, you know, Islam and other religions that that are, you know, maybe a minority in this nation, but I don't know much about Islam to say that this is what Islam says. But I know that even in Islam, there are people who believe in good governance, in integrity, in integrity, in good governance. And so those people should also be part of leadership. And in Alliance, for instance, in Alliance for National Transformation, we have, you know, it's not a Christian forum, it's for everybody. And we are inviting everybody who believes in godly values, in integrity, in justice and fairness, and all these principles to join us. So people should be in politics, because unless these kinds of people join politics, we cannot have a change with the kind of crop we have out there, with people who believe that corruption is okay, a system that is run on the wheels of corruption. We are not going forward. Now here we are taking loans, but where does that money go? It's splashed on the road for whatever. This can't be the way the nation is supposed to. But these very people cannot change this nation. Because right now there are few believers who are in positions of leadership, in commissions and so on, and they are having hell because they refuse to participate in these corrupt ways. We can't run like this. But we need a critical mass of people who are saying, yes, we believe in this, we are going to support it, we are going to vote for it, we are going to stand up and be counted.
Yeah, speaking of critical people, let's talk about national values. When you talk about, regardless of whether you're a Muslim or a Christian or any other faith, there are certain things that you should be able to uphold in terms of values of integrity and all of that. One of the questions that I have been unable to answer for a very long time that I get asked by any of our foreign friends when they visit here, I keep getting asked, what are your national values as a country? And they say, look, we know that your motto says forgotten my country, but where is this being enshrined in your day-to-day living, in your culture, and things like that? And I'll give you an example. If you go to places like Sweden or Norway or Germany, for example, you will have particular things that are enshrined in the way they behave as a nation, where they know that issues of integrity, especially for the Nordics, timekeeping and things like that, are instilled in children from a very young age to an extent where by the time a child is 7, 8, 9, or 10, they clearly know that as a Swede, as a Norwegian, as a Finn, there are certain things that we do in a certain way. Do you think that us not having a certain set of national values that are enshrined in everything that we do from a very young age for our children has maybe contributed to the sort of challenges we have, especially in terms of the decay of our morality and society in Uganda?
Yeah, I think those values have to be instilled in people. And I think in Sweden and in all those countries, children and all these people learn by example. But here we are with a regime that came, 30 years when government came, children who are just being born are now in parliament or wherever. So if they've grown seeing this kind of lack of values, everything goes, and the corruption, you know. You have some, you know, there are young people who have gone into places of work and their bosses are telling them, do this, this is the way we do it. You have to be, to do this thing when they know that it's not what they've even been told at home, and they say, well, this is my boss, I need the job, and all that kind of thing. So the values, I think because there has been corruption from the top, because the top influences what happens, you know, all the way down. People are seeing corruption. You are saying days of prayer for this, for the other, but you are doing something different. And these children, these young people are watching from schools. They grow up. Everybody, you know, the leaders are corrupt. So all the others become corrupt. And I think the other problem is, we've got so many young people who have brought themselves up. When we were in Parliament, that was around that time, there were lots of child-headed families. In Rakai, at least, there were all these people who brought them, you know, their parents died and they were left to be heads of families. Sometimes when I look at the things young people do, the way they you know, they just do things and you think, God, what is going on? But I go back and think, some of these people have brought themselves up. Some of them have grown up in schools and they steal exams so that they pass. They go to the university, they are stealing exams, you know. So they haven't had anybody to counsel them and to teach them that it is good to be mindful of the needs of others, to be mindful about others. It's not give me, everything belongs to me, I take it anyhow I want. But the leadership has not helped at all. The national leadership, our government has not helped at all. When you stand and you pay leaders, members of parliament, and you pay them, and you are not even ashamed. You know, recently we went to a funeral of a very prominent person in this nation, and the lady, one of the children stood up to speak, and they told us that one of the things their mother told them that they should always have a sense of shame, you know, to really be conscious that some things are shameful and you should not do them. But in this government, that doesn't happen. It doesn't, I mean, people just think, we are in politics. So politics, we do anything we want. And it is really sad. Yeah.
What practical things do you think we can do to try and begin to change that? Because obviously you can get the sense that everyone sort of realizes that this is a problem, and it will be only those that are benefiting from it that are more than happy to maintain that status quo. But that is not sustainable, is it, for us as a country?
What is not sustainable?
The way things are, where just a few people are able to benefit, and as long as things are going okay for them, it's fine, and everyone else has to sort of, you know, go along with that. But you seem to get the sense that a lot of people are a bit unhappy with the level of corruption in particular. I think if you can talk about that as a specific issue that we have in Uganda, where the level of corruption seems to be so high and it goes beyond the government. It seems to be in the private sector, maybe even more than it is in the government in some places. And so that doesn't remain sustainable, Honorable Kiyingi.
I think we all individually have to go back to ourselves. What am I doing myself? Because as individuals, we make the collective. As an individual, if I'm corrupt, it means that even those around me will see that, will learn that corruption is a bad thing. I think for those of us who believe that these things are not correct, we need to stand up and speak against them. We need to teach our children, or those that look up to us. They may not be my biological children, but the people that I sit down to do Bible study with, the people that I sit down to counsel, to help them understand that they need to get out of that mode. They need not follow the corruption of or that is going on around them. Of course, for me as a believer, I also tell people that only when they accept Christ will they, really be in a position to stand against such things. But we need to start somewhere. We need to start somewhere, make those little steps, wherever we are found, let us do the right thing. Let us talk about the right thing. Let us teach the right thing to those that look up to us. And then we will get somewhere. Because even in countries where, God is not found as important, they do things right out of culture. It has been developed, but they also at one time had those godly, had had God in their culture, but they developed the culture. Even when they dropped God, they still have that culture where they mind about other people, where they want to do good, where they have a sense of shame, So I think for us, we have to start, each of us to start where we are, because we know the right thing. Let's do the right thing. Never mind what everybody else is doing. The other day, one of my children was saying, but children, teenagers tend to say, but everybody is doing it. And I say, but you're not everybody. You're not everybody. Oh, but so-and-so's mother allows them to do this. But I'm your mother, and this is not what you are supposed to do. So let's start wherever we are, and start in whichever opportunity we get to do and to say and to think the right thing.
What role do you think our religious leaders play in this? Because you get to see some instances where even some of our religious leaders don't seem to be as vocal about some of the injustices that we have in society as they should. Does that bother you at all?
It bothers me, but it also goes back to the culture or the mentality that politics is not for us. And of course, the president, His Excellency, the president has said it several times, you people, religious leaders, stay where you are, which is really just for his advantage. But I think they are also, money has become a big trap for many of these religious leaders. They are religious organizations that are dependent on government for resources. And so they don't want to be seen to be going against the advice of that they should stay out of politics. So they don't want to mention anything. But I think there are those who do not mention because they think, well, politics is not for us. But I mean, politics influences everything. There is no way, even when you think of everything that we do, the taxes, the roads, and so on, these are all political issues. So people don't have to stand on the Kadala and say, government, you are not doing this and that, but they should be aware that when things go bad, they will not, the religious institutions will not remain unaffected. At least the individuals will be affected by the bad decisions that government makes. But I think there has been, it's those two things. Some have been co-opted into the corrupt schemes with or without their awareness, but also there are those who think that they can be there as a religious group, as a church, without involving in politics, in the sense that they don't want to go and stand and preach and so on. But there is, you know, but of course, they also have to know how to get involved, because if you stand and you are campaigning or doing politics all the time, you may not make any headway in either direction. But they have to be aware and see how to participate, how to encourage people to take decisions or to participate. Because once you tell people, oh, politics is a bad thing, then you are telling a person to decide between a church and a political participation, which shouldn't be the case. I think they should encourage people to participate in all these areas. Of course, there are people who think that, you know, when you are in participating, you are an usher, you are this or the other, that is serving God. And they don't think that politics is part of serving God, but I think there are people that are called to serve within politics. Yeah, we are different parts, but one body.
That's incredible to hear. Now, there's a particular Bible verse that I wanted to pick up before we can allow anyone who wants to maybe ask any question or say something to do that before we wrap up this wonderful conversation. And I want to thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing from your heart on this. In Psalm 11, from David says, look, the wicked bend their bows and they set their arrows against the strings to shoot from the shadows at the upright in heart. And then it says, when the foundations are being destroyed, what can the righteous do? And every time I read this verse, it was, I remember I first had this verse maybe about 11 or so years ago from my pastor. And it seemed to be such an accurate depiction of what was happening in Uganda, where doing right seemed to be more wrong than doing wrong. I mean, if you did right, you were the bad one, you were the enemy. And that was maybe 11, 12 years ago. The unfortunate thing, Honorable Kiyingi, is that Uganda has since degenerated, that it's gotten even much worse now, that even the people who would normally do right are the ones who end up being ashamed and will hide. And I'll give you a very basic example that's not even in politics, in terms of society. Our young women, our young ladies are ashamed now to come out and say, I'm a virgin, because they feel like people are actually going to laugh at them. What do you think we can begin to do to reverse that level of thinking, or at bare minimum, at least to give confidence to those who want to stand up for what is right, not to be ashamed of it, even though it might come at great consequence to them?
I think people just have to know that, you know, whatever we do it unto the Lord. If you know this is the right thing, do the right thing, because that is what pleases God. Don't do things for people to, you know, to be seen to be doing it, doing the thing that everybody is doing. When I went to the campaigns, people would say, oh, you have to go and campaign in bars. I said, I don't go to bars. I don't want to go and campaign in bars. And then there are people who would say, give us money. I said, I can't give you money. I can't. There are people who would say, build us roads. So and so is building roads. I said, I don't build roads. I go and I would explain to them why I do what I do, or I don't do what I say I don't do. So you do what you do because That is what God expects you to do. The rest will sort itself out. In any case, I think God doesn't, in this Psalm 23, where he says goodness and mercy will always follow me, but he doesn't say that nothing else will follow you. Even evil will follow you, but he will be there. So let's do what is right. No matter what people say, we should not even think that that when challenges come to us, then God is not with us, or no, the devil is also alive and well. And his
very
agents,
active.
yes, and his agents are everywhere. The ungodly people, or people who do not believe in your values, will come against you with vengeance. They will come against you, but God has assured you that you are more than a conqueror. Yeah, we don't have to fear evil, because evil is in the world. We live in the world, and evil is in the world, but we just have to know that God is with us. Yeah.
And indeed he is. And unfortunately, because of time, I think we're going to have to wrap up now. Again, I want to say a big thank you to you, Honorable Sarah Kiyingi, for sharing from your heart and for encouraging us. And it's obvious that from your own personal journey, that you've been able to walk the talk, and what you're speaking is coming straight from your heart. I guess I will leave us with one thing, even as I remind us that we should go ahead and continue to speak up whenever we get an opportunity, especially for those of us who are believers. When this recording comes out, do share it on your different spaces and be as vocal. In Psalm 73, the Servant David and Honorable Kiyingi, I guess you can just finish. I'll just read this and you can share your thoughts on this as we wrap up. David talks about how he saw how the wicked were prospering, and they scoffed people, they spoke with malice, they were arrogant and threatened oppression. And some of these things might even sound familiar when you hear them. And he said that this is how the wicked are. They're always carefree, they're amassing wealth. And he says to himself, it looks like I have kept my heart pure in vain. And all this time I'm keep getting afflicted, and every morning comes with punishment. And yet I'm trying to be honest, I'm trying to be God-fearing, and I didn't know what to do. And he says that he remembers that they are swept away just like that, like a dream when one awakes. And he says that I am always with God, and he holds me by my right hand, as you have just said. He guides me with his counsel. And then he says two of my favorite Bible verses in the entire book of God. He says, whom have I in heaven but you? And earth has nothing that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Isn't that such a wonderful comfort for people to have, Honorable Kiyingi, to know that no matter what happens, God indeed remains the strength of our heart, and it is him we should look forward to, and him we should fear, and not man.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is very, very important for people to know that God is with us. God is with us. And I think there are people who have God in them, but he's waiting for them to recognize that he's available for them to call on, and he's available to help them and to support them. Are we taking any questions? Or we've run out?
Unfortunately, because of time, we seem to run out of time. So I think we'll probably have to ask people to maybe engage with us on the Twitter. We have a hashtag, of course, that we're using that people can be able to engage us with. And we can be able to use that on the ANT page, so that people can be able to go and check out and get in touch with us. And the Alliance UG, that is the Twitter handle, that is the Alliance UG. And you can be able to share your thoughts on some of these things, but also any things that might have stood out for you. Otherwise, I want to say a big thank you to you, Honorable Sarah Kiyingi Chama, and thank you for what you're doing. And I hope you're enjoying the farm and the children and the grandchildren.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll wrap it up. And again, as we say in this country, for God and my country, God bless you. Yeah. And God bless Uganda.
You. Thank you for interacting with us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.